Contingencies. So from the buyer side and from the seller side could mean two different things. Hey everybody, Jason Barlow with Sell for 1%, joined by the man in the streets, Jamie Barlow, and our Term of the Week presenter, Dave Barlow, the broker in charge. Dad, you have a Term of the Week for us. Take it away, sir. Yes, sir. Would you like to let the audience know what the term is? I don't know.
Contingencies. It's contingencies. I know what it is. I'm the magician. Contingencies. Poof.
There you go.
Make that. Yeah, render that on screen. There you go.
There you go. Contingencies. So from the buyer side and from the seller side could mean two different things. The Columbus Board of Realtors contract is 14 pages now, including the signature page. And when I first got on the forms panel, our contract was basically a page and a half. Now this is, 22 years ago. So we're talking about ancient age. Yeah. And actually before that, we just did it on a handshake. But now you got the attorneys involved. And so went from a page and a half. And by the time that I finished up my 4-year term, we were to 2 full pages and a smaller font. So we didn't have to go to 3 pages. And now we're up to 14 pages. And those 14 pages are full of contingencies. And one of the discussions I used to have with Jamie Zeitzman, Jamie was the attorney liaison from the Ohio or the Columbus Bar Association to the Columbus Board of Realtors, because as non-sanctioned attorneys, we're not allowed to write contract terms. And so that was Jamie's job. And he would work between the Columbus Bar and the Columbus Board of Realtors to make sure that any contingencies that were written were clear and concise and, to the point. And one of my things was always, because I did mostly listings, was that the purchase contract with all of its contingencies, the page and a half of contingencies at the time, really favored the buyer. And I remember Jamie telling me at one of the meetings that, because the purchase contract is being presented by the buyer, yes, it is going to be biased to the buyer. And if there were terms in the contract that we didn't like as a seller, we would just have to simply counter it back out. And so that was kind of an eye-opening thing for me. And then as we progress to today's world, with the 14 pages of contingencies, and there's all kinds of things in there, and it really is, someone somewhere along the line sued somebody, and then we had to have another paragraph or another 3 or 4 paragraphs in order to handle that particular problem that popped up. And then a lot of times also there were paragraphs put out by the Columbus Board of Realtors, standard clauses. And when there was something that was being used on a very regular basis, then they would incorporate it into the purchase contract. And so, one of the things that changed here about 4 or 5 years ago, they came out with the latest purchase contract, dealt with good faith earnest money deposits. And it used to just simply be a paragraph that said that the buyer would put down X number of dollars, within X number of days of acceptance of the contract. And about 4 or 5 years ago, the forms committee decided that, it would be better if the buyer had the option to put the money down within X number of days of acceptance or within X number of days of the home inspection being completed and to the satisfaction of the buyer. And so now we have 2 choices in the the standard Columbus Board of Realtors purchase contract. I, as a listing agent, when I see that, I always recommend to my clients, we need to counter that out and ask them to put their money up within X number of days of acceptance. We don't want to wait until after the home inspection. But it is a tool that a buyer can use. And again, there was issues with people collecting deposit money, or, a lot of sellers, they want to hold on to the deposit if there's a conflict that they can't get worked out per the home inspection clause. And so this was a way that the committee thought that we could handle that. So there's a lot of contingencies, as I said, 14 pages now. Jay, as you kind of think about the purchase contract, is there a contingency that you would say is more important for a seller to consider than other contingencies?
I mean, the standard contract, not necessarily, because the contingencies that are in there are all, again, standard, but a home sale contingency would be a bigger deal for a seller than a home inspection contingency, stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, the home inspection is kind of just a generic now in today's world. Everybody pretty much does a home inspection. But you also then, part of that paragraph 6 of the purchase contract here in Columbus gives the buyer an opportunity to ask for repairs. And so that's kind of it's contained in the same paragraph, but it's a separate issue. And so we have some buyers who will do a home inspection with no remedy, or they'll do an inspection with a remedy. And so the inspection, as I said, is probably a little more normal. Jamie, from a buyer's perspective, is there a contingency that you think is more important than others?
Well, Jay brought up the home sale contingency being a part for a seller, again, that not being in the standard contract and of normal course of business sometimes. The one that's in there that kind of can go hand in hand with that one would be the financing contingency for a buyer. So every contract, you will essentially declare how you're getting financed, how you're purchasing the house. The financing contingency says, contingent on me obtaining financing through my mortgage broker, lender, bank, etc. I'm trying to buy this house. I want to buy this house. Right. But if I lose my job, if my debt to income ratio gets thrown off and they can't finance me, there's a contingency in here protecting the buyer, as you stated, Dave. Coming from the buyer, it's going to be biased towards them. And I find the financing contingency to be the most biased towards the buyer, because if they lose their job, they can get out of it.
Right. Well, the bank's not going to loan them. Bank's not going to loan them money if they don't have a job.
And then the home sale contingency, if your house doesn't sell, you can't get finance to buy. I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand for me.
Right.
But it is an extra disclosure or contingency.
Yeah, it's a fun one. And, we look at hundreds upon hundreds of purchase contracts on an annual basis. There's usually some handwritten or some, and this is one of the interesting things in the purchase contract that, it does say that if you make any changes to the purchase contract, it's supposed to be in, I think, a 12-point bold lettering. And I'll ask either one of you, when's the last time that you saw, additional contingency written in that's 12-point bold lettering? What's that?
The Fifth Amendment.
Okay, yeah, because you're one of those buyer agents. Now, it's interesting. I mean, there's a ton of things that go on in the purchase contract, and most of it, again, is to protect the buyer. But a contingency could be as simple as, we'll buy the home for X number of dollars. We'll buy a home if we can get financed. We'll buy the home if we do a home inspection and there's no issues, or if there are issues, then you as a seller agree to take care of these things. We'll buy the home if the home is not destroyed by acts of God, lightning, tornado, and if it is, you will let me, the buyer, know right away, and then I have the choice to either continue on with the purchase, or to take the insurance money and continue on, or to kill the deal altogether. There's all these things are contained in at the time of possession. You agree, Mr. Seller, to leave the home in broom sweep condition. When is the closing date? When is the possession date? One of the contingencies that I see a lot of agents just blow right through, this offer is only good until 11 a.m. on, April 18th. And at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, you're calling the agent to say, hey, are they going to respond? Oh, yeah, I forgot. I didn't, blah, blah, or they're traveling or whatever. And then, there's a term in there as a contingency that says time is of the essence. And that simple term says if you don't make the time frame, contract's dead. And then, you're writing up a counter offer that says, well, the original expiration date of the purchase offer to be through 11 p.m. on April 18th. But in theory, contract's dead. You have to write a whole new contract. But not many people know that. So again, long story short is there's a ton of contingencies. It's not very complicated. It is written in English and fairly easy to, read through and understand. And I always recommend to my clients as a seller and or as a buyer, read through the purchase contract because there's going to be things in there that you're going to have questions about and, we'll talk about them. But there's a lot of contingencies in that 14-page purchase contract. And one of the things that we do very, very well is to scan the purchase contract and then raise those questions to you, whether you're a buyer or a seller, and to make sure that you understand what you're getting yourself into or not into with the purchase contract and move towards a closing, which is what everybody should be hopefully pointed at, is a closing where someone's buying and someone's selling. And with any luck, everybody has a smile on their face and is happy about it. So anyways, contingencies is this week's term of the week. We cover this stuff each and every week. If you'd like more information, be sure to hit the subscribe button, the notification bell. We put this stuff out about once a week, and we talk about interesting subjects about contingencies or whatever it may be. And if you're thinking about buying or selling a home, these are all things that you need to know, all things that you need to have access to. And because of the number of transactions that we do on an annual basis, we bring a lot more experience to the table. And that's really what you're paying for, is the experience of your real estate agent. So give us a call. We'd love to hear from you, buying or selling. Phone numbers are here on the screen. And fellas, we will have another term of the week next week. Thanks, guys.